It was Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family home was alive with the festive spirit. George and Jenny Sodder and their 10 children were preparing for bed after a joyful evening. But by dawn, the house would be reduced to ashes, and 5 of the children would vanish, leaving behind one of the most haunting mysteries in American history. The fire began around 1 o'clock a.m., waking Jenny Sodder. The smell of smoke filled the air, and flames were rapidly consuming the house. George and Jenny managed to escape with 4 of their children, but 5 of them, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty, were trapped upstairs. George tried everything to save them. He broke a window, cutting himself badly in the process. He ran to grab his ladder to reach the 2nd floor, but the ladder was missing. Desperate, he tried to start his trucks to climb on them for access, but neither would start, even though they had been working perfectly the day before. Time was running out, and the flames grew hotter and higher. Jenny and George could only watch in horror as the fire consumed their home. By morning, the house was nothing but a pile of smoldering ash. Yet, as the ashes cooled, the real nightmare began. The remains of the 5 children were never found. No bones, no fragments, nothing. A fire that burned for less than an hour couldn't have completely incinerated their bodies. Experts agreed it was impossible. Grief-stricken and desperate for answers, the Sodders began to piece together strange details. Just hours before the fire, a man had come to the house, trying to sell the family life insurance. When George refused, the man allegedly threatened him, saying, "Your house will go up in smoke, and your children will be destroyed." A series of strange phone calls followed that night. A woman with a strange, unfamiliar laugh asked for someone who didn't live there, then hung up abruptly. Later, Jenny heard a loud thump on the roof and what sounded like an object rolling. But when she checked outside, everything seemed normal until the fire began. The Sodders grew more suspicious when they found their ladder tossed into a nearby ditch, and the phone line to their house had been cut. George couldn't shake the feeling that someone didn't want him to save his children. In the weeks that followed, there were bizarre sightings. A woman in a Charleston hotel claimed to have seen the missing children with 2 men and 2 women. She described them in detail, but vanished before she could provide more information. Another woman said she saw the children in a car the morning after the fire. As the year passed, the Sodders' search for answers became an obsession. They plastered billboards across the area, offering a reward for any information. One of the most unsettling moments came in Needsid, over 2 decades after the fire. Jenny received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a man in his 20s. On the back was a cryptic note that read, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. I lil boys, A90132, or 35. The man in the photograph bore a striking resemblance to Louis, one of the missing Sodder children. His dark eyes, his hairline, it was unmistakable. George and Jenny hired a private investigator to follow up on the lead, but the investigator vanished without a trace, taking any answers with him. Over the years, theories about the Sodder children's fate have ranged from the sinister to the supernatural. Some believe the children were kidnapped and sold into human trafficking, their disappearance staged by someone with a vendetta against George. Others suggest mafia involvement, as George, an Italian immigrant, had spoken out against Mussolini and made powerful enemies. But the strangest theory is the one that has haunted the Sodders' surviving family for generations. What if the fire was a cover for something far more terrifying? What if the children were taken by something not of this world? The thump on the roof, the eerie, disconnected phone calls, the photograph arriving decades later, as if someone or something wanted to remind the Sodders that the children were still out there, somewhere. To this day, the fate of the Sodder children remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history. 5 children vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions and a family tormented by grief and uncertainty. Where did they go? Who took them, and why? And what dark force, human or otherwise, orchestrated the nightmarish events of Christmas Eve, 1945? The answers may never come. All that remains are whispers, rumors, and a lingering sense of dread, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary of nights can conceal horrors beyond imagination.